Hello again, everyone. Edwin Learnard back once again. In this YouTube segment, I'm going to be talking about the death of George Floyd. Now, many of you may heard about this, that George Floyd was killed recently. It was on Monday, and what happened was there was an officer that had pressed his knee down very forcibly on George Floyd's neck, and did so for a very prolonged and protracted period, and ultimately led to his death. Now, there's of course speculation and conjecture on whether this was racially motivated or not. That remains to be determined. Maybe it'll never be known 100%, but there is some fervent speculation regarding that right now. But the first thing I want to do, of course, is offer my condolences to the family and friends of George Floyd. I was looking at some writings online, some blogs online, and it stated that George Floyd, you didn't really hear anything derogatory about him. It stated that he was like very passive and docile, very like a gentle giant. Basically, he had apparently he had played at least high school sports. I don't know if he played college sports, but I know it was high school sports that he was involved in. He was like 6'7". He was a very big stature, and apparently what happened was, according to wikipedia.org, it was reported to the police that George Floyd had been, there was an attempted forgery by George Floyd. This is according to a report, though. But and then it was said he was found by his vehicle. Looked like he had some alcohol in him, or I don't know if he was considered intoxicated. That I'm not sure of. That part is a little bit unclear to me, but I do know there was something that was related with forgery that he at least been accused of, and there was some certain alcohol level he had in him. But this was based on a report, and I don't know if this has really been corroborated at this point in time. But the thing about it is that if this was based on any discrimination, if that was by chance that was the case, what people have to remember is, I mean, discrimination, of course, is tied into the word, the word prejudice, which if you break it down, dissect it, it's prejudge, and judging somebody superficially based on the color of their skin, their physical composition, their complexion, in which the reality is the only people we should really discriminate against are the ones that discriminate against us, regardless of race, creed, or color. This is terrible. This has been a number of riots as a result of this. I don't see anything positive about any riots, anything beneficial about that. I mean, there's people, just because I understand people are incensed and angry in that Minneapolis area, what have you, Minnesota, about the death of George Floyd. But two wrongs don't make a right. It doesn't give people the right to go into stores and loot them. And probably, I'm sure there's been some shelves that have been destroyed in at least one store. So it's not even just, I mean, you're talking about not just the monetary loss in the stores, but also there's likely destruction of the property, and you're putting innocent people to work, to have to work, and also there's stores that are losing money as a result of this. This is not something that should be condoned. There's obviously nothing positive one can derive from a situation like this. That being said, again, this is a very devastating event, and the thing about this is, when you have situations like this, all this can do is exacerbate already any existing racial tension, if this was indeed racially motivated. And even by chance, even if it wasn't, there's so many people that are going to perceive it that way, and you could have a number of the black community going to be outraged, and that might fuel some fire on their part. And this is something that is not necessary, that for something like this to occur, that the police officer that had used this excessive force on George Floyd, he had been disciplined a number of times. There was a report on Yahoo.com and it stated something about he had been disciplined a number of times, and he's obviously had some issues before. So they're really, and he was, I believe, he was terminated after this occurred, and probably going to have a very difficult time finding any work in law enforcement in any other city or branch or what have you. And the thing is, people, I mean, we got all this stuff going on with the coronavirus pandemic. We don't need to add insult to abject misery. You're going people that are doing this looting as a result of this death. I mean, we don't need any more problems. People are having a hard time now in terms of there's people trying to get back to work. I'm sure in Minneapolis, I'm sure that city at least had been shut down for a number of times as far as businesses go, attributed to the coronavirus. And now, and I'm sure there's the people and businesses trying to get back in that workforce. I'm not sure of the situation there in terms of whether the city has officially completely reopened, but the percentages say it likely has, but that's something you'd have to confirm and look up online. But I would say by now, since we're almost at June 1st, it probably is at least everything but officially reopened. And the thing is, don't punish other people as a result of one person's death. This is something now what people have to look at and understand. This is going to make this situation, this incident, is going to diminish trust in law enforcement. If there was distrust or any mistrust to begin with, now unfortunately you're going to have that escalate to another level, and there's no telling it. And then what it does is it gives a bad rap to policemen, and you're going to have some people sadly that are now going to stereotype policemen and think they're all like this, where there's a lot of policemen, of course, that are more judicious in their decision making process and think more before they're going to take action on somebody, and what kind of action they're going to use. It reasonable action. This is obviously something that was very excessive. It was over the top, something that never should have happened. And sadly, I mean, nobody really intervened to stop this. Whether it might have been because of fear of law enforcement, or I mean, there could have been multiple reasons. If you have people there that are smaller in stature, of course, that people are, or females, probably people were apprehensive and afraid. I understand that. It's a shame that nobody, see, the problem is, I think what it comes down to is that nobody would intervene out of fear of the repercussions they were going to face if they were going to pull this police officer off this guy. It's interesting that's I mean, I'm sure this has been touched up on some blogs, but I haven't seen this aspect or element of the story really talked about much, as far as anybody coming to the person's aid and trying to help them. But I understand sometimes that's easier said than done because of the fear element or aspect that's involved in something like this. And the thing is, too, you look at, I mean, this situation now. He was pronounced, George Floyd. I mean, this incident took place around 8 p.m. on Monday, but he was pronounced dead according to a New York Times blog. He was pronounced dead at 9:25 p.m. So presumably it was something due to maybe something with the lack of breathing. Something maybe was cut off in his throat. Because he obviously was having trouble breathing when the officer was pressing his knee down on this person, on his neck. And this, of course, was captured on videotape, so they did have evidence to support what was being stated about the police officer. Now, it seems like, at least on one report, that a police officer may have lied and stated that this was not actually transpiring, and that it was because there was something else went down. They had somebody, I think, may have reported something completely different. I don't know if that's true 100%, but there was at least one blog that stated that there was some other report initially that may have been stated, and it contradicted what was being shown in the videotape, as far as the police officer pushing that pressing down on that man's neck with his knee. So anyway, people, don't really have too much more to say about this. I just want to give, again, not to be redundant with this, but I would like to give out my prayers and condolences to the family of George Floyd. From my understanding, what I saw on the internet, again, it sounded like he was very passive, docile, very friendly person, the kind of person that would show a lot of benevolence and kindness toward others, and he certainly didn't deserve to go in this manner. It was not justified, and there's people obviously that are so outraged that they're calling for the police officer that to actually be indicted or being charged with murder. So we'll see how that pans out. And anyway, people, and the only thing I want to get at is, again, for people, the few people that actually see this, that to understand, please, because I don't know if that was the case in this incident. It may have been racially motivated, but it's a message to us that perhaps we don't, not perhaps, we don't need to be judging someone by any color of their skin or their size or their appearance or what have you, and make sure that we're the only people that we may discriminate against are people that discriminate against us regardless of race, creed, or color, complexion, or what have you. And anyway, people, this is Edwin Learnard. Until next time, stay well.